Arsenal beating Man City 5-1. It's one of the worst results for Guardiola in his entire managerial career. That was embarrassing. That's the worst result that City have had in this losing, terrible streak in the last 3 months. It's the worst. It really is. It's worse than Man United. You can lose to Man United on a bad day in a derby. You can lose to Spurs quite a bit if you're Man City as well. PSG was bad, but they're a fantastic side. Arsenal are a fantastic side, but to lose 5-1 to title rivals in the last couple of years, to give Arsenal the kind of belief that in the long-term future they could do that to Man City in the future when City are more competitive as well, potentially next season and the season after. This is the kind of result that changes the fortunes of clubs moving forward. There will be a bittersweet kind of vibe around the Emirates. This kind of result couldn't have happened against Aston Villa, couldn't have happened earlier in the season. To make Arsenal a little bit more competitive with Liverpool, it does make them competitive. It keeps them alive in the Premier League title race in a big way. But ultimately, 5-1 against Man City, it gives this Arsenal side belief for years to come, Mikel Arteta included. We're going to talk about all the goals and where this leaves both Man City and Arsenal. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new as well. I'd really appreciate that. It started off 2 minutes in. It's the worst start City could ever make at the Emirates. Playing it out from the back. Whatever you say about Manchester City, whether it's the defensive frailties, things getting whipped into the box, losing possession, playing it out from the back, City have still kept up a decent record. And actually, at the Emirates, Akanji on the ball, Ortega on the ball, even John Stones. I've never seen John Stones look so nervy on the ball in my entire life. And he's arguably the best ball-playing centre-back this country's ever produced. He looked nervy as well. I don't know what's happening on the training ground at Manchester City. I just don't know what's happening because Akanji is one of the most seasoned pros at the club, giving the ball away. The ball gets played into Martin Odegaard, who scores finally a big goal against Man City. You could argue that he hasn't really scored enough against the Big Six for the quality that he displays. It was a big goal for him. And ultimately, despite how good Arsenal were in the first half, in the second half, it was only a 1-0 lead. Kai Havertz, we have to talk about it. It's the worst miss in the Premier League. It's the worst miss this decade in Premier League history, in my honest opinion, because if someone like Akanji makes a big clearance off the line, if Ortega makes an unbelievable save, then you say fair enough. But if you're point blank on goal, no one's even challenging him. It's not like there's a shoulder barge. There's not even like anything going on. You have to hit the target. You have to get it between the posts. How am I even talking about this guy hitting a ball from 5 yards out between the posts, and it goes wide? It's a miss of the highest embarrassment. And I'm not saying it to wind up Arsenal fans, of course not, because he did score later on. But how symptomatic is it of Kai Havertz, who he is as a footballer? He's not the guy to make it 2-0 in a crunch match against Man City, but he's the guy that makes it, 4-1. You know, he's the guy that takes... He's the cherry on top of the cake. He's never really the cake itself, if you want to use that analogy. That's about it. What can I say? City... I think City, we rode our luck for large parts of the game. Lucky it wasn't 2 or 3-0, really. Arsenal did have chances. In the second half, City did look for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. That's about it. It's embarrassing when you think about it. Had a little bit of a spell. Nunes was in advanced positions, not really doing too much, but keeping the ball. Phil Foden as well. Kovacic knocking it around. Savinho gets a great little bit of space and he dinks it into Erling Haaland. I think it's a great ball, sort of dead weight into Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland has to do a lot there. But the cross, I thought, being so close to Haaland, I think it's just the perfect cross. We are seeing a lot of this Savinho and Erling Haaland connection. And it wasn't beautiful from either of them today. I thought both of them were really poor at different spells in the game. But they did link up. They did score. Erling Haaland did get a goal away from home against Arsenal. And it's another one under his belt. But I'm just going to be real before I talk about the rest of the goals that obviously took Arsenal over the line in a winning way, in a 5-1 way. Erling Haaland has to do more. He has to do more. I left the studio, I left the club when I was watching it thinking, am I being harsh? Am I being social media kind of hyperbolic, being aggressive in kind of condemnation of a striker that scored so many goals in the last 3 years? 115th goal for Manchester City in such a short spell. 250 career goals already. And he's 24. He's got the rest of his life in front of him. It's mental. And I look at his basic play today, And it's absolutely frustrating. It is his hold-up play got bullied by Gabriel. Look, some of the best centre-backs in the league, in European football. But his hold-up play, when there are balls played into him, he's goal side. It should be standard operating procedure. Someone like Lukaku was great at doing it. Someone like Edin Dzeko was great at doing it. Holding off, just simple. It doesn't have to be rocket science. I'm not asking Erling Haaland to turn a man like R9. I'm not asking him to be, Drogba in terms of being able to spin a man and strike from 30 yards out. I'm not asking that. He isn't that. He's not Sergio Aguero. He's not Carlos Tevez. He's not any of these players. He's not even Nicolas Anelka in terms of how he used to carry the ball. Fantastic strikers on the ball. He isn't that. But he's so much better than what he was doing today against Arsenal. Holding the ball up, being physical, getting his body in the way. He did it against Arsenal today. And then the final bit of that execution has to be finding a way to lay it off to someone. And I don't think the Arsenal midfield were that good today. They didn't have to be that good. They kept a lot of the ball. They dominated large spells. But you want Erling Haaland to give yourself a breather. This is basic football. When you can't have De Bruyne at 100%. We can't have Rodri at 100%. All these intricate kind of footballing things that Guardiola does. Mamouche is a technical footballer. You've got all these Foden, all these technical guys, Kovacic. When your side's down, you have to have your IQ as a footballer a little bit higher than Erling Haaland did today. You have to be a little bit smarter and say, I'm going to hold up the play and bring my side into it. Do you know what I mean? You see it with FA Cup sides. You see a striker for Bourne Wood doing it. Bringing your guys into play, bringing the rest of the side up the pitch by 10 yards. Haaland did not do that enough today. Not enough smartness winning a foul. Not enough smartness in linking up play, keeping possession. The balls up to him weren't great, but it worked against Chelsea, his hold-up play. And whether it's not being worked on the training pitch or not, that is a frustration. Because Erling Haaland has to do more in these games. He has to do more in these games. He does. 10-year contract. You want him to be improving. Is he improving in the basic fundamentals? And I guess the first fundamental of a striker is literally scoring goals. And I'll defend him to the hill. I defend him on every podcast ever. The scrutiny he gets is disgusting. You can't overachieve like he has and slag him off in the way that football fans do. League 2 player by Roy Keane. It's an embarrassing comment from an ex-professional that knows what it means to score goals. He knows if Roy Keane was playing with someone like Erling Haaland, he would have won even more titles than he did. And he's one of the most decorated players of all time in the Premier League. So Erling Haaland is a great, great footballer. But his link-up play and his crunch moments this season has to be so much better. It has to be so... You can't just get away with scoring a header against Arsenal and letting the rest of the side rot. You have to lead from the front. That's just what I'm going to say about it, but leave your comments down below. Thomas Partey scores a deflected effort. It's a decent strike. I thought he was really good today. Thomas Partey intercepted everything. Bullied the Man City midfield. I mean, Man City's midfield should look what Arsenal's midfield is. Do you know what I mean? It's just lightweight, Kovacic, passenger throughout the side. Phil Foden, one of the worst games I've ever seen him have for Man City. Gave the ball away so many times. Gave the ball away for the Thomas Partey goal. That is literally what happened. I mean, played it straight into his feet. It's a terrible pass. And they say it's like Sunday League. They say it when you're like 4 years old. You barely come out of the womb and you're kicking a ball around. They say don't play it square across your box. And Foden basically did that a little bit further up the pitch. Craziness. I have to talk about Skelly. His first goal for Arsenal. I can't believe it. I feel like he's been around the block. I feel like he's so seasoned now. How he looks as a footballer. It feels like it's his 5th season. And it's instrumental. This kind of goal for Arsenal from academy prospects. We'll talk about Ethan Nwaneri in a minute. This kind of goal. It is a bit like Wayne Rooney against David Seaman for Everton. Obviously not the quality of the goal. It's not the same as Wayne Rooney. Of course not. But when you're that young, when you're bursting onto the scene for that big a football club against a side as successful and dominant as Manchester City, it is a little bit akin to Wayne Rooney bursting on the scene. And Skelly's burst on the scene before this game, don't get me wrong. But to score a goal like that as a left-back, who he'd say is a midfielder, plays his entire career so far up to this season as a midfielder, playing at left-back, he was Arsenal's best player today. Let's be completely real. He was better than Odegaard. He was better than Declan Rice. They did their jobs. Skelly was bombing forward. Skelly scored a big goal to take Arsenal over the line. Really take Arsenal away from City after the Partey strike. The way he links up play, he personifies Arsenal Football Club. He's a silky footballer with pace, with power, with belief, with confidence. He tucks it away on his right foot, his weak foot. He bends it into the bottom of the net. Maybe Ortega should do better. And then he goes and celebrates like Erling Haaland. That is the kind of mental mind games that could affect the Premier League title race. next season, the season after, he'll be someone that Arsenal rely on for many, many years. He's an absolute genius at his age. To be doing what he's doing, special. Very, very special. Kai Havertz, I said, added to the drama. The third on his left foot, the fourth goal, 4-1 to Arsenal. And then again, I'm going to heap praise to Ethan Nwaneri. Scored a very similar goal in the Champions League midweek. Comes on, scores in the 93rd minute, bends it in. Ethan Nwaneri, I said it from the start. Whatever you say about this channel, if you've been watching me for a decent amount of time or not, I said it from day dot. He's more than good enough to be starting these games. More than good enough to have been easing the pressure on Odegaard. Playing with Odegaard when Arsenal needs to break down sides, stubborn sides, and get more points in the Premier League title race this season. Ethan Nwaneri, more than good enough to be coming in and playing more football matches. I don't slag off Arteta for not playing him as much. You have to be very, very careful and cautious, and you have to manage footballers. Look at Phil Foden. He got managed massively by Guardiola, despite how highly he was rated. And look at the player he is. Well, except for today, of course, had a bad game by his standards. But Ethan Nwaneri, his minutes are being managed, but purely on a talent level, more than good enough to be starting these games for Arsenal and scoring big goals. He's scoring a goal every 90-odd minutes for Arsenal, one of the biggest clubs in European football. He's not even 20 years old. I don't think he's allowed to vote. Maybe, just about. Join the army. But he's so young. It's mental. A few comments. If you watch this far, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I've talked about the Kai Havertz miss. Absolutely embarrassing. I've talked about the young players. Mamouche today was the big name transfer City have made this January. Kujanov obviously not starting. Vita Rice hasn't played a minute yet. Very, very young. Doesn't want to be thrown in by Guardiola. Mamouche had a couple of moments, played a few nice balls off the left. I don't think he's a left winger. I think he wants to be playing down the middle and influencing things like he did for Frankfurt. I don't think it worked today. I don't think he had a good game. So you're looking at £150 million worth of talent, can influence things this season. So it kind of doubles down on the issue of what happened in the summer, because now, if you sign these guys in the summer, obviously we don't know how good Mamouche was going to be in the summer because he's had a great start to the season in the Bundesliga. But if you're going to make this kind of adjustment in the creative midfield department with the average age of the squad, doing it in the summer gives you this kind of breathing room. So when Arsenal do rock up, start of February, they're settled in. These guys weren't able to make the difference. And you'd argue if you're spending this much money, especially with things to play for, top 4 race for City, Forest looked good, Chelsea could win and come above City, the Real Madrid game, even Leyton Orient, does City win that necessarily? Hopefully. Then do these players even make a difference for these games? Right now, I think Mamouche will come good, but I just thought maybe he's a little bit further along the line. He looks a little bit off of it for me. The link-up play wasn't great, not affecting things enough. It's maybe I'm being harsh, but he's in that kind of age bracket where he could be coming in and influencing things potentially, and he's just not. So the whole side is struggling. Foden had a terrible game, and then the big one is De Bruyne came out this week. Stories of a potential contract extension. I think it'd be the wrong call. And now, obviously, if you ask a Chelsea fan, you ask a Man United fan about extending, let's say, Wayne Rooney's contract or John Terry's contract. As a fan, you have to sit there and say, give these guys whatever they want, let them stay on, having him around the changing room, having them start games and then rotating starting at one game every 10 days maybe for De Bruyne now at this age. 1 in 3 games he starts, 1 in 2. But playing against Bruges, can't start against Arsenal, comes on, can't influence things, isn't trusted away from home against Arsenal. You'd argue he has to be starting this game and then you bring him off after 60 minutes. But I was watching it with Miles, obviously, and he said De Bruyne hasn't got the legs for this kind of game. And I think he's absolutely spot on. Thomas Partey, Odegaard, Rice would have swallowed up De Bruyne. De Bruyne hasn't got the legs in the same way. Foden started, Kovacic started for a little bit more physicality in the midfield, and that didn't work either. So I think the City side have to change in midfield. Bernardo's not working in midfield. Ilkay Gundogan's not trusted. It's going to be really tough the next few weeks if City apply this formation again. Someone has to come off. I think maybe it's Savinho maybe has to come off. You bring him on as an impact player. Foden, Mamouche, an extra man in midfield with a bit more legs. I mean, we're talking about Nico O'Reilly potentially going to Chelsea. Why isn't Nico O'Reilly starting more football matches? I think he was on the bench today. You're looking at James McAtee. I know they're young kids, but if you're going to lose, at least lose with a philosophy. This is a City side that is lacking philosophy, lacking belief, and the issue for this game is that Arsenal have now instilled this kind of energy, this kind of belief, this kind of desire through Skelly, through Ethan Nwaneri, through Havertz and Odegaard scoring. It's the kind of result that could have repercussions in terms of both sides' confidence in the next couple of seasons. It really is frustrating. Look, City can lose to Spurs. City can lose to Man United all the time. Even PSG in the Champions League, it does happen. But to Arsenal in this way, it's a big, big power shift potentially in future Premier League title races. But bittersweet for Arsenal because it won't be this season. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're new, would really appreciate it. I'll see you very, very soon.